Hi, everybody. Welcome to our day number 3 recap of action at semifinals. We are here in Pasadena as we just wrapped up competition at the North America West. I'm joined by both Lauren Khalil and Tommy Marquez. We'll take you through all the day's actions, wrap up the team action, talk about individuals, and then what we're going to see on Sunday. But let's start with the team competition because now we know the 10 teams that will be heading to Madison, Wisconsin to take part in the 2023 Noble CrossFit Games. And we start with test number 5. And Invictus ran into a little bit of a problem here. Jorge Fernandez didn't get any lifts. He had his hamstring heavily taped. Invictus would finish in 11th place overall. On the Rhino CrossFit Dogs, they would really solidify a spot inside the top 10 with their effort on test number 5. And that made things really interesting as far as the top of the overall standings were concerned in test number 6. As Ethan Helbig was able to get quite a few reps at 315 pounds, and Christine Middleton put the finishing touches on a test win for Rhino CrossFit Dogs. Then we get to test number 6, and the overall lead was up for grabs between the Misfits, Invictus, and Omnia. And when it came down to the very end, Franco's Misfits got across the finish line. They pick up their 3rd test victory of the competition. And that was big because we had a 3-way tie for points on top of the overall standings. And that win breaks the tie for Franco's Misfits. Einhorn CrossFit Ascend, they were able to keep themselves inside a spot in the top 10. They're going to the CrossFit Games. But man, that finish and the 3-way tie atop the overall standings. I mean, I can't remember the last time we saw something like that.
Well, and the thing about that is watching them go head to head, all 3 lanes next to each other on that second to last round of the burpees over the worm was just so intense because they were all chasing for that top spot of the podium. They knew that everything was on the line at this point. And ultimately it was Franco's Misfits that was able to edge them out, Sean, as you mentioned, because of that extra event win. But all 3 teams, we knew that it was going to be them headed into this final event. It was just a matter of who would end up in which position. When I spoke with Franco's Misfits, they said that this is what they wanted. This was one of the goals that it was heading into finals, but now it's just more data as they head to the CrossFit Games, and what an exciting finish it was for all 3 of those teams.
And Tommy, for the 2nd straight week, one of the prior heats, so heat 3, those teams factored in as far as deciding who was going to the CrossFit Games.
I mean, if you want the full range of emotions, it was present here in the team competition. We got it from CrossFit Believe and Verdant CrossFit because, Verdant was in a previous heat. They put up a decent enough score, but then CrossFit Believe, the team that was on the bubble, really struggled. Their female pairing got stuck on the hand, got capped. It looked like maybe their CrossFit Games dreams were dashed, and then we got everyone out onto the floor. 20 teams on the floor, and it came down to just 1 point. And in the end, despite the struggle, we saw some of their teammates it's just in shambles. Believe gets the CrossFit Games nod, and then they get to go from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, and that's just pure sport.
And congratulations to all 10 teams that are moving on to the 2023 Noble CrossFit Games from the North America West semifinal. Now, we still have a lot that needs to be decided on the individual side. We had 3 tests for them today. We'll have 2 more on Sunday, and then we'll know who's going to the games. Now, on the women's side, we started with test 3 earlier in the day, and Olivia Kerstetter, who came into this test in 12th place overall, needed a big performance, and she would get it. Alex Gazan would finish 2nd in the test with a time of 12:26.86 seconds. But Olivia Kerstetter would take the test win with a time of 12 minutes, 13.5 seconds. She would go from outside of the top 10 to 4th place overall. That took us to tests 4 and 5. And Hannah Black stealing the show, a 215-pound snatch to lock up the 100 points and the victory. And then in test number 5, Katrin Davis-Daughter, who has looked great all weekend long, another strong performance for her. She takes 2nd place in the test behind Emily White, and she is solidly inside the top 10 as well. So congratulations to Katrin Davis-Daughter. It's been great to see her back in competition. But Tommy, Hannah Black, where did she come from?
Well, if you've been paying attention on the internet, she came from a 225 snatch PR that she posted on social media just a few days ago, a few weeks ago, right into a top 10 spot right now and looking like she could potentially go to the CrossFit Games. More importantly, she opened with 205. One of the best lifts we had seen thus far was 205 from Danny Spiegel. She opened with that and she hit 215. And what you didn't see is she had an attempt at 230 and just barely missed it. And she needed that win to keep her in a games contention spot. And then Emily White, the best time that we have seen thus far in this semifinal, absent of one of the Wells sisters, just absolutely smoked it. And then the key thing for both of these women is they each have 3 finishes of 6 or better, but they also each have a finish in the 30s and 40s. So they've needed these types of home runs to keep them in the running, but it also means we could see some big swings potentially if they have one of those bottom finishes again tomorrow.
And Lauren, there are some names inside the top 10 right now, and they're shooting for their first ever trip to the CrossFit Games. Meanwhile, there are some veterans on the outside looking in who need to do some work on Sunday.
Yeah, it's very interesting if you look at the leaderboard right now, because there's a handful of rookies that I don't think we've talked about a lot, and it's those vets that are on the outside looking in. We have Danny Spiegel, who is currently sitting in 14th, right above her, Emily Rolfe, that's sitting in 13th, and then just a little further down the leaderboard, Sydney McLishan sitting in 18th. The good thing is, all the way through about 19th position, rather, they're still in contention to bump up inside those 1 through 10 positions. So at this point, they're on the outside looking in, still 2 events left. And especially when I spoke to Danny Spiegel earlier today, we talked a little bit about that event 7, and it's all going to come to grit, who wants it more. And that's where a lot of these athletes are really going to try to make up those points to squeeze inside the top 10.
Yeah, those 2 tests on Sunday really setting up well for some of the athletes on the outside looking in. Let's go to the men's side of the house now, where it's been pretty exciting as well. 3 tests for them. Started the day with test number 3. Now, Colton Mertens was coming off that second place finish in test number 2 to close out Friday night. He would go out and actually win this test. Justin Medeiros, we just saw him. He would take 12th place. It would drop him to 6th place overall in the standings. Chandler Smith would take 2nd place behind Colton Mertens with a time of 12 minutes, 10.53 seconds. It would move him up to 4th overall, but Mertens, 11:06.99 seconds, and that would move him into a qualifying spot. Then in test 4, Tudor Magda, 325 pounds, the win and the test record.
I mean, it's like a flashback for me from a comp I did back in November, a Zalos game, so I'm happy to get that 3-pound PR, but in no way I was like expecting that. I actually missed 270 in front of me in the warm-up area leading up to that event, so I was a little bit jittery, but yeah.
Then we moved into test number 5. Now, Brent Fikowski had a 300-pound snatch in test 4. That put him in 2nd place, and then follows that up with a 2nd place performance in test 5. And he was in a race with Pat Vellner at the end. Vellner would get off the treadmill first. He gets across for his first test win of the competition, and he is your overall leader heading into day number 3.
It was good. It was a fun finish there for that 4-5. We both did well in both parts, which anytime there's a 200 points up for grabs like that, it makes a big difference. So it was a big swing for both of us, and it's fun to have us both there. It's a fun rivalry we've had going for a long time. So I think last time we had a regional in the West, Brent won, and I've actually never competed out West, so I might try to take it from him tomorrow.
Lauren, we knew that these 2 were going to do well coming in, but Brent Fikowski and Pat Vellner have pretty much stolen the show so far.
They have. It's like the Canadians and then everybody else below them. So it's just Brent, it's Patrick, and the 2 of them each have an event win at this point. And it's so fun to see their relationship, their friendship, where they kind of smack talk a little bit, but they are still trying to have fun while beating the other one on the competition floor. When I spoke with Patrick earlier today, he was just talking about the depth of competition here, but also how he's having fun on the competition floor. And what better teammate? We saw him on Wodapalooza with Fikowski on a team. What better person to go head to head? All they really need is Jeffrey Adler to be here, and then it would really be the Canadian show.
And Tommy, we have 2 tests remaining, and no one is really safe right now. And there's some big names. I mean, Justin Medeiros right now sits in 7th place. He's got a little bit of a cushion, but he certainly cannot take his foot off the gas heading into day number 3.
Yeah, Justin's about 30-ish points ahead of the cut line, and he hasn't really looked like himself, to be honest, but he still at least has enough of a cushion, and I believe he'll rally on the final day. But more importantly, looking at that cut line, spots 8th through about 12, only separated by 26 points. And if you look at who's in that 12 spot, Cole Sager, we've seen him make up that margin in a single event back in 2015, 2016, those epic comebacks for him out west. And then just 7 points behind Cole is Luis Oscar Moore. And each one of these athletes has been able to have a couple of top performances so far. So there's a lot on the table with some big names chasing some new athletes like Jack Rosema, who's in 8th. Right? Rosema, Mitchell Stevenson, the guys holding on to that cut line. But I really think we're in for a barn burner on Sunday, especially with some of the volatility that we've seen on the men's side so far.
Day 3 in Oceania is getting set to start. That's one of the other semifinals that is going on, with South America being the other one. And the mayor of Australian CrossFit and the man calling all of the action down there at the Torian Pro, Jeremy Austin, got us caught up on what has been going on the first 2 days of competition in Australia.
Thanks, Sean. A massive day 2 at the Torian Pro, where we painted the pro pink again for Hannah Clark and her 3 children, Alia, Liana, and Trey. Great atmosphere here as well, and plenty of people coming out in the stand. Some epic lifting as well, and now a test record along the way for the Oceania region as well. In teams competition, Torian Mayhem and 6'4 Army Endgame battled it out to end up equal after 2 days of competition. In tests 3 and 4, Torian Mayhem really confirmed their status as top contender coming in, but it will be an exciting finish tomorrow with the last 2 tests coming up. Now, female division was interesting, and Ellie Turner got to work and finished on top spot, with Grace Walton moving into 2nd and dropping Caitlin Van Ziel into 3rd. Now, Maddie Sturt, Jamie Simmons, still a chance, but it is going to be tough to get one of those top 3 spots through to the CrossFit Games. For the men, Jade Crouch was absolutely flawless in execution, finishes day 2 with a buffer of 66 points, back to Bailey Martin, and Jake Douglas in 3rd. Will Carney, 15 points back in 4th, with only the realistic chance of making a top 3 spot, with day 3 to come at the Torian Pro. 200 points on offer. Can't wait to see who stands on top of the podium after day 3. Thanks, Sean. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. And now let's turn our attention to South America. And Tommy, the big story right now is that Guimayeros, the man that we thought was going to run away with this whole thing, he's on the outside looking in right now as far as a qualifying spot is concerned.
And I'm going to have to be frank here. Guy is in series of not qualifying right now. You look at the point spread between him, Kaike Serrani, and Calian Ribeiro de Souza. He gave up some serious points in that first event. Guy finished 15th, gave up 51 points and 47 points respectively to those 2 guys. Looked like he was crawling and clawing his way back. And then he has a 6th place finish in the final event on test number 5. But more importantly, Kaike and Kalian both finished in the top 3 in that. So when he stumbles, the other 2 athletes are taking advantage of it. You look at the overall leaderboard, he's got 39 points to make up on 2nd. He's going to have to start winning events, especially with these high-skill gymnastics coming up on the final day. Otherwise, I hate to say it, it would be one of the biggest upsets to not see Guimayeros make it out of South America.
And Lauren, over on the women's side, you have 4 athletes who are fighting for 2 spots with just 2 tests remaining.
That's right, Sean. And at this point, it's really those 4 ladies and everybody else, but who will punch their ticket? Because there's only 2 on the line. We have Victoria Campos sitting in first, right behind her, Alexia Williams, Andrea Pinheiro, and Valentina Rangel. So tomorrow is going to be a big day to see if Victoria Campos will return to the CrossFit Games, or if we'll see new blood from South America who will head to Madison this summer.
It is going to be an exciting final day for all 3 semifinals, as spots in the CrossFit Games will be decided for the individuals here in North America West, and then for the teams and also the individuals in Oceania and in South America. So let's take a look what is on the schedule for all 3 of these semifinals. As I mentioned, for North America West, we have the final 2 team tests, 6 and 7. For Torian Pro and Copa Sur, team tests 5 and 6, and individual tests 6 and 7. We will have a wrap-up show again tomorrow night when it is all said and done, and let you know who is heading to the CrossFit Games with just 1 week of semifinals remaining. You can follow us on Instagram for coverage throughout the day from here in North America West. Lauren Khalil's just been killing it with all the highlights and all of the interviews that she's getting, so you want to be sure to check that out. For Tommy Marquez and Lauren Khalil, I'm Sean Woodland. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night.